So what are occupational standards? Occupational standards describe what a person in a particular occupation is able to do, what they know, and what they're capable of doing. Capable means having the skills, knowledge, and abilities to perform the job effectively. And the occupational standards that we're describing today, the ones developed for early childhood educators, were developed by ECEs across the country for use by you and by your peers. So why do we develop occupational standards? They're a very valuable tool, and they are based on competencies that describe exactly what an early childhood educator must be able to do in their job. Occupational standards can be used in any number of ways by a variety of audiences in the early childhood and care sector, including government decision makers, early childhood education and curriculum developers, directors of early childhood education centers, as well as frontline early childhood educators. A how-to guide was developed to promote the occupational standards for early childhood educators. They're meant for discussions and to stimulate those discussions between frontline ECEs and directors of early childhood education centers. These are only examples that we're going to present today. They're not best practices on how to develop the tools from occupational standards, but they are 5 very specific ways on how you can use the occupational standards in your setting. We encourage you to read through the how-to guide and the occupational standards and develop your own uses for the occupational standards. The first use of the occupational standards is to develop job descriptions using those occupational standards. Job descriptions identify the responsibilities and duties that every employee is expected to carry out. There are many benefits to effective job descriptions. They include setting clear expectations for workers, clarifying hiring needs, and clarifying the relationships between the roles working within an early childhood education center. To develop the job descriptions, there are usually 4 steps that can be used. Now, there are many methods and ways to develop these job descriptions and to use them within your center, but we're going to talk about 4 very specific steps that might work for you. First, you need to outline the purpose of the job. It's a snapshot of the occupation, and it tells you what the major responsibilities are. Next, when you have the major responsibilities outlined, you want to make sure that those responsibilities are deemed critical to success for the job. Next, we would outline the required education and experience of the person that you would like to hire. What kinds of training and past experience does that early childhood educator need? And then you want to outline the required licenses, certifications, and registration for that person. We won't really discuss the last step in too much detail, as there are different requirements across different jurisdictions in Canada. So we're going to discuss those steps in a little more detail right now. The purpose of the job can be defined, as we said, in about 3 to 4 sentences, and what it does is it really outlines an overview of the key job responsibilities of the ECE, the level of supervision and management that they'll require, and how much supervision that they will be responsible for in their job. The next step involves outlining the essential responsibilities of the person by identifying the tasks and subtasks, and this is where the occupational standards can come in and really help you focus on exactly what the tasks and subtasks are. The best way to do this is to read through the occupational standard for early childhood educators and circle or mark the tasks associated with the job you're looking at. And it's important to keep in mind that not all practitioners, not all early childhood educators are expected to perform all of the tasks and subtasks that are included in the occupational standard, but we want to make sure that the job descriptions are very specific to the role that you're looking to fill within your center. After you've chosen the appropriate tasks and subtasks from the occupational standards, you can review the context statements and scan the subtasks a little closer for a more in-depth discussion or an in-depth look at what those subtasks and context statements can add to your job description. For example, if you look at task A1 of the standard, it's called Facilitate the Development and Behavior of Children. And the context statement for that task reads, early childhood educators facilitate daily experiences that support and promote each child's physical, language, emotional, cognitive, moral, and creative development and behavior using applicable observation tools while respecting inclusion principles and diversity issues. So the context statement really provides further information to the capable completion of that subtask. To complete the process of outlining the major responsibilities of the job, you can use the information in the context statements to write a 1 to 2 sentence description of that task for a responsibilities section on your job description. And not all responsibilities will be listed in this section. We just really want to focus on the major responsibilities of the job. Step 3 of developing those job descriptions involves the identification of required education and experience. Very important to the role of the ECE, you want to make sure that the person you're hiring has the appropriate level of education and experience. So this information can also be taken from the required core knowledge section of the Occupational Standards for ECEs. So if we look at a specific example from that occupational standard, subtask A12 is facilitate cognitive development of children, and there are a number of core knowledge components to that task. So as you read through those core knowledge components, just take a look and capture specific education and experience that might be associated with some of those. And try to stay away from education and experience that is nice to have in the job. You want to really focus in on what that person really needs to know and the experience that they need to have.